Let's have a look at this diagram here. So if you look from the left, you've got someone that's exercising. Now, if someone's exercising, they're using the glucose. Because obviously muscle cells need glucose in order to produce energy. So when someone is exercising and they're using sugar, respiration, because respiration is oxygen plus glucose producing carbon dioxide, water, and energy, blood sugar will decrease. Now, the alpha cells in the pancreas will release glucagon, which is a hormone similar to insulin. The hormone glucagon is released, and the liver breaks down the glycogen. Glycogen is stored excess glucose into glucose, so it goes back into glucose. What happens once you've eaten? Now, once you've eaten, your blood sugar levels will increase, and because it tries to regulate it, your body will secrete insulin, and pancreatic beta cells release insulin. Once the insulin is secreted, the glucose, adipose cells will take up glucose, and once it's taken up that glucose, your blood sugar levels will start to decrease. Alright, let's have a look at this slide. So one of the objectives is to explain how glucagon interacts with insulin to control blood sugar levels in the body. So let me just read through the paragraph at the bottom. Insulin and glucagon are hormones, and they are secreted by cells within the pancreas. And they're called islet cells within the pancreas. Now, they're both secreted or released in response to blood sugar levels, but in opposite fashion. So if you have a high glucose levels in your bodies, then insulin will be secreted. Now, insulin is normally secreted by beta cells, a type of islet cells in the pancreas. The stimulus for insulin secretion is high blood glucose. So if you have high blood glucose levels, then insulin is released. It is secreted by beta cells. Although there is always a low level of insulin secreted by the pancreas, the amount secreted into the blood increases as blood glucose rises. So obviously, as you eat more, then the level of insulin will increase. Similarly, as blood glucose falls, the amount of insulin secreted by the pancreas will go down. Pancreatic islets will go down. As can be seen in the picture above, insulin has an effect on a number of cells, including muscle cells, red blood cells, and fat cells. In response to insulin, these cells absorb glucose out of the blood, having the net effect of lowering the high blood glucose levels in a normal range. Glucagon, another hormone, is secreted by the alpha cells of the pancreatic islets in much the same manner as insulin, except in the opposite direction. So if blood glucose is high, then no glucagon is secreted. When blood glucose goes low, however, such as between meals and during exercise, more and more glucagon is secreted. So like insulin, glucagon has an effect on many cells of the body, but most notably the liver. So here's just a diagram. So if you just remember alpha for glucagon and beta for insulin. So alpha cells secrete glucagon when blood glucose levels drop, breakdown of glycogen to glucose in the liver, release of glucose into the blood. So because glycogen is stored, if you've eaten too much sugar, remember the insulin converts the extra glucose into glycogen. What happens if you do not have a lot of glucose? Then alpha cells will secrete glucagon when levels drop, the breakdown of glycogen to glucose into the liver, and then glucose is released. Now, what happens if you have too much sugar, so too much glucose? Then beta cells will secrete insulin when blood glucose levels are increased. The uptake of glucose by cells are increased, and the liver will change the glucose into glycogen, and then the blood glucose levels will decrease. So for this slide, the body needs glucose to make ATP, via cell respiration. Now, cell respiration is oxygen plus glucose producing carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And energy is ATP. However, the amount required will fluctuate according to demand. So if you just eaten a donut, for example, or sugary foods, high levels of glucose in the blood, if you have too much of those, that can damage cells. That is a hypertonicity, and hence glucose levels must be regulated. 2 antagonistic hormones are responsible for regulating blood glucose concentrations, insulin and glucagon. These hormones are released from pancreatic pits called islets of Langerhans and act principally on the liver. So what happens if you eat too many sugary foods after feeding? So insulin is released from beta cells of the pancreas and causes a decrease in blood glucose concentration. This may involve stimulating glycogen synthesis in the liver, glycogenesis, promoting glucose uptake by the liver and adipose tissue, or increasing the rate of glucose breakdown by increasing cell respiration rates. So, if you have high glucose levels, then insulin is released from beta cells in the pancreas, and that will reduce the blood glucose concentration. What happens when blood glucose levels are low? Then glucagon is released from alpha. So if you remember that insulin is from beta and glucagon is from alpha cells of the pancreas, this will cause an increase in blood glucose concentration. This may increase stimulating glycogen breakdown in the liver, glycogenolysis, promoting glucose release by the liver and adipose tissue, or decreasing the rate of glucose breakdown by reducing cell respiration rates.